Okay. This is Monday morning. Bring it in, David Thorpe. We have a little special day today. You ready for this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Most of the shows we have the 76ers and Ben Simmons. We're going to do a 4-part kind of examination of what's the problem with Ben Simmons' play, what's the cost of keeping him around, how good will the Sixers be without him, and what is the solution. That will be very thoughtful, ponderous. We're going to mine your big brain. But first, we're just going to rack in this speed round where I'm going to throw topics at you, and you're just going to just throw things back at us. You ready for that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you watched the Nets and the Lakers. What are your takeaways?
Anthony Davis looked incredible, physically incredible. The Nets sat the starting 5, and then probably Patty Mills would be in the rotation. So there's 6 guys they sat, and still looked pretty darn good, scored a ton of points. That's encouraging. I thought Horton Tucker looked good for the Lakers. Malik Monk looked, I don't know, very good, but maybe very good if you didn't expect much from him. So again, I think the Lakers are going to compete for the Western Conference regular season crown. Nothing I saw yesterday will make me think otherwise. And if the Nets have at least 2 of their 3 stars healthy, they're going to be the favorites. I don't know if they'll win it, but they're going to be right there. Yeah. So all good on both sides. I thought it was good.
David's had a little vaccination controversy. How's that going?
Andrew Wiggins got vaccinated, and I'm so glad of all the players, and I don't know how many guys haven't been vaccinated. I was so happy for Andrew because this is such a breakout opportunity for him with what the Warriors may enjoy this year. And this is a guy that's he got traded for LeBron, and it's almost to Minnesota, which is almost like being traded to Siberia in American terms. So I just want him to have a good year, and he's off the snide. I don't know who else next who isn't vaccinated might get vaccinated. It'll be interesting. I don't know, but at least he did. Maybe that'll make it easier for the next guy, right?
Ben Simmons trades are a big topic, and you like the Pacers as a potential destination because of the trade they can put together. But that's not looking good right now, right?
Well, I wrote about this a couple weeks ago. We published it. You edited it, and there's a couple trades that the Pacers could do that I think make some sense in terms of filling holes for Philadelphia, and we'll talk about that later. I was glad to see Brian Windhorst mention it in his thing on Friday that, hey, the Pacers are a team that can do this deal. So at least someone else out there besides me is saying it. Well, Karis LeVert is coming off an injury. He could be a package that Philly would in the package. Philly must like him. He's a high-level scoring, shooting guard. T.J. Warren is still out, has been out since last year, and they don't know his timetable. They do think LeVert will come back maybe by opening day. They're not sure about Warren. That could slow things down some. But I do think that as we look forward and we talk about Philly, Malcolm Brogdon and one or both of those other guys are interesting pieces. I think Rick Carlisle probably would love to get his hands on Ben Simmons and play him in a way that he tries to play Luka, it's apart from all the three-point shooting, of course.
David, you are a very nice guy, but occasionally you get a little mad, and you're a little mad that people think the Jazz roster is the reason they haven't won a championship in recent years. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's funny. I do agree with you on that. Well, they changed the roster a few different times. Their starting 5 last year was amazing. Their second unit, amazing. They had the top seed. The 2 things that happened last season, they had a Donovan Mitchell injury. He's their second best player behind Rudy Gobert, and Mike Conley, who's their third best player, but one of the best players in the league if you look at things like EPM on dunks and threes. And those guys were both out late in the season and didn't really have a chance to come back and find their place because all of a sudden they're playing the Clippers in the conference semis. Quinn Snyder is the same coach. And I like Quinn. In fact, I like Quinn very much. I think he's a very good coach. But how can we not look at, well, maybe it's the coach who isn't able to find ways to beat Ty Lue, who adjusted nonstop in that series. Jazz kind of stayed with the same old, and got run out in 4 games. So I don't think they got better on paper. Maybe Quinn got better. Let's see. But I don't like that. How I feel about it's a coaches league, and it's for the good and the bad. So to me, all eyes need to be on the coaching staff and how they adjust this year in the postseason.
You're seeing the Spurs as a fascinating and kind of potent combination of players and picks that could be part of some trades. Talk about that.
Yeah, I wrote about them too in that trade possibilities for Ben, and Zach Lowe wrote about them on Friday, and I thought he did a great job of really diving into. All right, you've got Derek White, who's 27 and being paid a good amount of money. DeJounte Murray, I think he's 25, being paid a lot of money. They're good guards. These are starting level guards for playoff teams. Keldon Johnson, they picked him a couple years ago, was on Team USA. They got a bunch of young guys. We know about Josh Primo, Todd Ramisar's player, youngest player in the draft, lottery pick. Devin Vassell, one of my top 4 players from 2 drafts ago. He's just 20 years old, I think, and looks like he could be a breakout player this year. Zach Lowe compared him to a better Mikal Bridges, which is a pretty darn good player. All-star level potential player, maybe not perennial all-star. Jakob Pertl from Austria is a very good center that no one ever talks about. So are they going to maybe try to trade for Ben Simmons and get into the playoffs? Are they just going to trade those good older veterans who aren't old, just older, and really go for a top 5 pick to add to all that young player? They're in an interesting position to be in. And if they trade some of those really good players, then someone else is getting much, much richer, like a Bulls team or whatever, and suddenly could ascend up the charts a little bit more.
There's a little talk about the Clippers pushing for an early return of their injured star, but you don't see that happening?
Right. Well, they just signed Kawhi to that long extension. There's an article I think I saw today or maybe yesterday that he's ahead of schedule in his recovery from his ACL. I don't think the Clippers are going to push it. It's going to seem exciting that, hey, he's recovering fast, but they just signed him to a long-term deal. They can take as much time as they need. This year is a wash in a sense. Any extra wins they get is great. And then make sure he's super healthy for 22-23. That's my guess anyway.
Just a quick little note before we get into this Ben Simmons stuff. Thank you, David. That was brilliant. I've lived my life in such a way that almost everybody I know sent me a link to the weekend's release from the International Consortium of something journalists of the Pandora Papers, which is basically more douchebaggy rich people moving money into anonymous ways, blah, 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 blah. I'll just, last year, when the same consortium of journalists had a different release, the New York State Department of Financial Services Superintendent Linda Lacewell wrote a little column, which included this: how did we get here? Over decades, we have allowed the problem to metastasize so that it's endemic in the system and wrapped within the guts of financial institutions. So I think that's kind of like that. There are going to be more of these. There are always going to be more until they actually want to change it, right? Like the fact is, like, this is how banking works. This is how the financial industries work. It's just with, this money. So anyway, that's that. Okay. David, congratulations to you for being mentioned prominently in a very classy New Yorker story. That's got to be kind of fun.
Yeah, you and I both think Louisa is an amazing writer, and I know she's a subscriber and she listens to our podcast. So if you're listening, hi Louisa, and thank you. Yeah, it was cool. I think it's the best magazine out there, so it was cool.
So she wrote a story about Ben Simmons, and it was distinctly not like every other one, and it did feature quite a lot of the thoughts of one David Thorpe. This is, of course, Louisa Thomas, the New Yorker, who's been on the show, and actually with her friend Mary Pallon, they wrote that amazing book. I might have right here.
Losers?
About losers. Such a good topic. Anyway, couple of little quotes from her article, like just on how we got here. First, the Philadelphia superstar Joel Embiid alluded to Simmons passing up an open shot immediately after the game. Then the team's coach, Doc Rivers, when asked whether Simmons could be the point guard for a championship team, committed the cardinal sin of honesty by saying that he didn't know. He's been trying very, very hard to walk that comment back ever since. Philly fans started referring to the moment, often in anger, simply as the pass. Then it talks about how he's been allergic to shooting from the beginning, a little bit like Giannis. Simmons is nearly 7 feet tall with a muscular grace and the mind of a geometer. Near the rim, he can be unstoppable. He doesn't pass the ball so much as let it flow from his hands, slipping it through the smallest spaces to his teammates. His size and agility enable him to defend any player anywhere on the court. He finished second in the year's voting for Defensive Player of the Year. He and Embiid had great success during the regular season. The two had a plus 16 net rating when on the court together, one of the best of any pair in the league. The hope has always been that Simmons, at the very least, would improve his free throw shooting, which is ranked among the worst in the league. Surely someone who has the vision and skill to grab the ball under his own basket and toss it with precision to a streaking teammate under the opposite basket in one fluid motion, as Simmons has done, could learn to throw the same ball into a basket 15 feet away, but it hasn't happened. And his evident fear of drawing fouls may make him less efficient in his scoring attempts. The website 538 noted that Simmons' free throw rate has dropped as he started relying more on a hook shot. All right, David. So what's the problem? What's the problem with Ben Simmons' game right now?
I mean, he's afraid to get fouled, and he's not a perimeter threat. But I would take it a little bit bigger, which would be the macro look of all, which is, we talked about this, I think, the show once before. he sees himself as a facilitator first, which is what like my son was and I was when I was a player. It's my son, 3 years taller than me. And we didn't think about impacting the game more than we did. But we should have. I should have been more aggressive as a player. My son should have been. But if this guy's 6'10" is super fast and powerful and quick, with handles and a comfort on the perimeter. He doesn't think about destroying opponents frequently. I referenced an article a couple weeks ago that we wrote. We referenced his 42-point game at Utah without Embiid. Louisa mentioned that game and some other games where he had like 30-point triple doubles or very close to it without Embiid, where he just dominated everything. We saw Giannis do that to 2 MVPs and now a championship. We just have only seen an occasional glimpse of that from Ben Simmons. And I do want to say, Henry, that this isn't weird. Lots of guys have 1 50-point game, 2 40-point games. The real superstars have 12 40-point games and 38 30-point games over the course of 2 seasons, whatever. Ben just occasionally visits that special place, but mostly recedes back to being the game manager and then great defender. And I think that it's in the postseason, it recedes even further to the point where he's really reticent to do much offensively. And it makes him easier to guard and makes it hard for the Sixers to be great.
So he's not a Sixer for all intents and purposes. He's in this limbo where he's not in camp. A pretty cool article from John Krasinski and Kelly Iko. What do you think? Iko?
I don't know, but I did see the article in The Athletic.
Athletic story. And they go through the Timberwolves in the Jimmy Butler era, the Rockets in the James Harden era, and they talk to players and people who were there at the time about what that was like to have your superstar not around. And a couple, I thought there were lots of interesting quotes here. One was about like everybody who's in Sixers camp right now has to wonder if they're going to be part of a trade, right? This is a quote from a former Timberwolf. Obviously, there are certain guys who know they're not going to be included in the deal, but there's a higher percentage of guys in that locker room that could be on the move as well in some type of deal. That adds another factor to the whole situation, as well as for why guys would like a deal to be done, so they don't have to worry about it anymore. And then there's like actually when DeMarcus Cousins in real time, when James Harden was creating his drama, he said, obviously it's disrespectful. Everybody has a right to their opinion. We feel a certain way about his actions, but this is the nasty part of the business that gets swept under the rug. And then similarly, Joel Embiid has said this year, the situation is weird, disappointing, borderline kind of disrespectful to all the guys that are out here fighting for their lives. Some guys rely on the team to be successful to stay in the league and make money somehow. Because if you're on a winning team, you're always going to have a spot in the league just because you're on a winning team and you contributed. So what's the cost of this limbo time?
Well, I love the first part. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit. There's not some players that are protected. There's one player.
It's Joel Embiid.
That's it. Joel Embiid 100% isn't getting traded. I think you and I both can agree on that. There's no one else there that is safe long-term. There are the guys they acquired this summer, Andre Drummond, George Niang, and maybe anyone else they signed after that are on kind of made good contracts. Maybe they can't be traded till sometime in November, which is coming right around the corner, a month away or so. Everybody else from Tobias Harris to Tyrese Maxey, their first-round pick last year, Seth Curry, Matisse Thybulle, they're all Danny Green. Danny Green just signed, so he'll be November too. All of them are not going to be deal breakers for Daryl. In other words, he may not include them because he doesn't like the deal good enough. But if he likes the deal enough, he won't be, well, I can't lose this guy. No, there's only Embiid that's protected that way. So yes, every one of them could get traded. It's always the case you might get traded. But when you know a trade is coming, not every team does a trade every year. In fact, most teams don't make a trade during the year. You better be renting. It's what I always tell players: rent. Don't buy. Don't buy in the city you're playing anyway. Buy in Jackson Hole or somewhere if you want, but don't buy in the city you're playing in if you think you'll be the long term, because you have no idea if you will be.
There's a weight to that though, right? Like, I mean, I often reference all these management books I have here, but like, people perform at their best when they feel safe, right? Like when you never know where you're going to freaking live, you don't feel safe.
Well, so people have asked me before, Henry, when I'm helping players, counseling players during the year, what am I doing? Am I getting their elbow in or stuff like that for their shot? No. A lot of times I'm counseling on big picture, like get off the roller coaster and get on the merry-go-round. Merry-go-round just goes round and round. Find joy in that, because whether you like it or not, it's a roller coaster. Life's a roller coaster for all of us. But for these NBA players, it's a huge roller coaster with everyone's watching, and people are covering it as their job in the media. So yeah, that's really a big cost where you just don't know. Am I all in? Are these guys all in with me? If they're not all in with me, how can I be all in with them? And that's part of the other thing, which is you've got to play the me game sometimes within that we context of, I've got to make the right play for this team because my next team may be interested in me because I'm doing it. I don't want to be thrown into a deal and then go to the 12th man. If I'm in the rotation in Philly, let me play well. Let me make good basketball plays. Let me make the shots I take at a good percentage, make the right pass, show I can play defense, dive on the floor for loose balls, all of that, so that the Sixers will value me, but so might another team who takes me, even though I'm not the first guy they want. Ben Simmons, without question, when they do a trade, is going to be the guy the team most wants to acquire. Everyone else might be appreciated. It might just be the salary works, which is the fear. So that's stressful. You've got to just play your best game. Every individual player is the CEO of his own business. That's why we reference things like Team Simmons and Teams Embiid and Team Wiggins. They're all their own team that way, and they need to buy into that.
True or false, it's better for the Sixers' performance this year if they get this resolved faster.
True. I think it can really unravel if they wait. It may turn out where the best deal comes out in February for sure, but I just don't know for this season how that's going to play, which means guys may get fired, coaches and executives, even if they pull a great deal in February going forward, which is important. Embiid still got years to go, but every year you don't take advantage of Embiid in his prime is a lost situation. So I think that they'll be better off solving it as soon as possible. The East is good, best it's been in a long time, and you don't want to be chasing from the 5 spot. It's just too hard to gain him ground.
That gets right into our third issue is how good are the 76ers without Simmons?
Okay, this is the question. Gerard and I visited this issue on Friday. Yes. Henry, I don't know. I have serious doubts. Joel Embiid, I think, is a magnificent player. I do. And I don't think he's the devil. He's not DeMarcus Cousins at his worst in terms of attitude. I think he's problematic in some areas. I think he's passive aggressive in some areas. He ain't the first player to be that way, or first person. He's amazing. But Ben Simmons he's not just the best passer on the team. He's one of the best passers in the world. He's not just the best defender on the team. He's the best defender in the world that isn't 7'4" with a 7'6" wingspan like Gobert or whatever he is. Replacing that is impossible. You can do it in the aggregate to some degree if you get 2 or 3 guys and make the team better that way, but no one can do what he does. You can get someone to score more than him, but they've got plenty of guys that can score. Certainly Embiid makes everyone open. I have real worries, Henry. There's no passers on the team, none. Maxi's a score-first guard, and he's 20. Shake Milton is a Jordan Clarkson-light player. He can evolve into more of a playmaking player. That isn't the guy he is now, and I like Shake Milton. Seth Curry, nowhere close to being the overall playmaker his brother is, obviously. He's just a shooter, and he's fine. Danny Green, no. I mean, Andre Drummond's a pretty good passer. George Niang's a pretty good passer, but you can't count on those guys to be that kind of difference maker in place of Ben Simmons. So, and not then defensively, Tabule is a very, very good defensive player. Drummond is huge. We know Embiid, whatever, but there's no Ben Simmons. So I think that it may work out where if they lose some games early, and I said this to Gerard, Ben Simmons will be smoking that cigar and smiling like I told you motherfuckers. But I kind of think Daryl Morey might also. Daryl's a brilliant guy. I could see Daryl on the phone with whomever saying, we're trying to win here. But that's how good Ben is. We're sick to our stomachs that he won't come back. We know how good he is. The evidence is right in front of you. We're 3-7 or whatever it is. And we're last in defense, and our assistant termination was terrible. They're also a very good transition team. and very good scoring off turnovers, thanks to who? Ben Simmons. So there's a lot of question marks going forward without him that I just don't know if they have any answers. And they really are restricted what they're going to do, because until they trade Ben, they don't want to do any other moves. They can't go get anyone else, you know? So yeah, I think they're going to struggle to be. If they're 500, I think they've done well without him. That's my first guess.
You asked before the show who's the lockdown perimeter in place of Simmons, and of course it's Tybal. But man, he is so much worse on offense than Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
I looked it up. So on dunks and threes, he's an 84th percentile player. Matisse is overall, which is amazing. He's about as good as NBA players get on D, in 20 minutes a game. But on offense, he has the lowest usage rate in the whole NBA. And his overall offense is minus 2.6. So basically, he never does anything with the ball, which is a difficult place to start from. Maybe he has all these crazy ball skills he doesn't use, but like Simmons has the ball, used it 73% of the time. And on offense, this will be surprising to Sixers fans, but he was a plus player, plus 0.3, 73rd percentile. A lot of their best defenders last year were Tybal, Simmons, Paul Reed, Joel Embiid, and Dwight Howard. They lost two of those guys. It's going to be, it's not a lock that they'll be this elite defensive team.
No, I mean, they're losing the best defensive player that isn't Rudy Gobert. Drummond, I think, can be a space eater inside. He's not a great shot blocker. And we talked about Niang, who's actually a plus defender. He doesn't look it, but he is. But those guys aren't Ben Simmons. They're just not. And Danny Green's another year older. I worry about them defensively. And to your point, Matisse is a bad offensive player. That doesn't mean he's always going to be a bad offensive player. No one, I've never said that, but he is now. He's not only is he not a scoring threat, he's just not good on offense, period. He could be a better cutter. Maybe he will be. Maybe they'll run some pinch post action with Drummond and let Tybal do face cuts and backdoor cuts and DHOs with Drummond and play downhill. That might be great. We just haven't seen that. He's been a bad offensive player. And it's a problem for them. He's not injured. Simmons is just not there. He's not coming back. So every day, I'm sure Daryl is thinking about what can we do. Meanwhile, those coaches, they start tonight. They play in Toronto, which we may mention later. We'll see. We'll see what they look like. I don't think both teams are going to be sitting players, maybe big centers and all that kind of stuff. Maybe not play. But no, the Sixers are up against it right now for sure.
Dude, we are lousy with Sixers fans around here, and all anyone talks about is Ben Simmons. And some of the people I was talking to this weekend are coaches. I know you're my number one coaching resource, David, but I talked to a different coach. He said in a very respectful way that basically he wasn't terribly impressed with how Doc Rivers adjusted to their opponents in the playoffs. He felt like it was a little bit same old, which matters now because now it's time to innovate. Without Ben Simmons, now's the time to like try new things, experiment, be bold, whatever. And he's a little suspicious that Doc won't be in that mindset. What do you think?
Yes, Randy is wondering if you're cheating on me. No, I do not think you're cheating on me. Thank you for that. The more you talk to smart coaches, the smarter I get too. And I talk to coaches all the time. I think it's a fair assessment. I think there was a time where Doc, he's always been a very charismatic man, but he actually was a really good X and O guy. And I liked him in Orlando. I liked him in Boston, obviously when he had great players. I think your coaching friend made a fair assessment regarding the postseason. I also think, though, he was handcuffed because you kind of got to play Ben, and Ben had checked out. And then he stopped playing Ben, but they had no one to replace him with, really. This is part of why they have their hands full. They're going to have to shift on the fly without, if Daryl Morey knew going into the season, we definitely don't have Ben Simmons all year. I think the roster would be constructed differently right now. But it's constructed based on hopefully having Ben back a little bit, and then we'll plug and play with whatever deal we get if we have a big deal. That's not the case now. So I know he's experimenting with Keith Pompey wrote an article the other day where he's thinking about maybe trying a big lineup where he plays Tobias Harris at 3, George Niang at 4. So there's one of the top shooters in the league at 4 next to Joel Embiid. And then there's thoughts just from talking to people internally in Philadelphia of going small and trying some different lineups, whether it's Tobias at 5, Tybal at 5, Niang at 5. And when Embiid's got a rest and not playing Drummond at all, the Clippers did it to beat the Jazz. They went small, and Rudy Gobert stayed on the court, and they ran Utah right out of the gym. I could see Philly trying that same thing. The problem is their backcourt. These are Shake Milton, I do think, is a solid player. He's not a true lead guard kind of thing, which is okay if the team can adjust to that. Maxey, I love Maxey's talent. We've talked about it a bunch. I'm not sure he's ready to help them this year. We'll see. I'm a big fan of Paul Reed. I'm not sure how much he plays because they brought Niang in, who's a veteran player played on the best team in the league last year in Utah. And Tabule, I don't know what position he is, 2, 3, 4 maybe. But what do you do with him on offense? I do think that Doc, I think he will, I don't know about innovative. I think he'll be more willing to try stuff out of necessity. And maybe he'll stumble on something there. But even so, he's got to get shooters on the court surrounding Embiid. They are a paint-first offense. That's not going to change. And I don't know if he has enough of them or enough defenders. And remember, they're such a good transition team and scoring off turnovers team. Without Ben Simmons, they lose a lot of bets. So they were the 13th best offense without Ben Simmons last year. And I don't think their transition game will be nearly as good as it was last year. I could see them dropping 18, 19, 20 on offense, and that's a problem.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
There's a little bit. So you were talking earlier about, how Daryl could be made stronger. His position could be strengthened by the team starting 3 and 7, which makes a lot of sense. If we agree Daryl Morey is like GM for life in Philadelphia, right? But it's not a great moment. Daryl's not so different from Sam Hinkie. They're very close. Sam was doing some smart things for the team long term, and it just looked bad short term, and he was out, right? And the 3 and 7 start is one where I think fans they're not in the meetings, they're not hearing from Daryl how smart this is. And if fans turn on the strategy a little bit, I imagine Josh Harris, well, he's shown in the past, he can get a little antsy. Doesn't have an infinite appetite for looking stupid.
Well, this what comes down to owners empowering their employees. I think in this scenario we talk about, Henry, you pointed out very well. If they start out poorly, Daryl's on the phone telling teams, I told you how good this kid was. I'm paraphrasing, obviously.
Yeah.
Conversation won't really go like this. He does so much. The metrics tell us a lot. He's a top 25 player for a reason. That's why you should give us your top 25 player, whatever you would be asking for. That GM of the other team might be thinking, yeah, I'm just going to sit tight. They're going to have to panic because of what you just said.
Yeah.
So the offer that I'm making Daryl now is going to be worse in 3 weeks because he's going to have to do it or he gets fired, which is why I said before, that's when Josh Harris has to strongly support his staff and say, guys, there's zero chance I'm firing any of you. Get our best deal. We got all year. Then put you in this position. This is what Josh would say. Stick tight to your guns. Don't do a deal for less than what you think we're worth. We have him again next year too. It's not like we lose his contract. We have his rights. You guys are fine. And then say that publicly so that other GM can't think, I'm just going to wait Daryl out. He's going to have to take a lesser deal. So for example, in the deal I put together a couple of weeks ago, it was Malcolm Brogdon, TJ Warren, a couple of first round picks from the Pacers. Well, if Kevin Pritchard from Indiana says, you know what, in 3 weeks, we can give him Sumner, some backup player, and TJ Warren, make sure the numbers work because Daryl's going to lose his job otherwise. It's better that than nothing. And that's why it's so important for Josh Harris to say, we're sticking with this as a group to get the best deal we can get. But he may not do that.
I don't, it's not the private equity vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's the other thing that occurs to me is this period without Ben Simmons. Like Joel Embiid is one of the most injured players in NBA history. Like if Embiid's out and Simmons is home, how bad is that team?
Bad. Yeah, bad. That's a major problem when Joel. I think if Joel is missing a game, they can scheme up some things. I've heard Drummond looks pretty good. I don't know that he's more than 20 minutes a game guy, but if he can figure it out for 20 minutes, and then for 28 minutes they go really small, as an example. Let's see how Maxey gets better. I mean, that's the one thing I've said this before, we've written this too, where the Sixers can can say, you know what, while Ben is out, let's double down on building Tyrese Maxey and Shake Milton's game so that come postseason, they're at the best we can hope for this year. They're going to have to take some lumps with that. And so again, to me, this is the ideal situation for Philly would be ownership and management saying, we have Joel Embiid locked up now for 5 years. Not to say that he couldn't ask out. I realize he can. They all can now. But contractually, we have him. We're going to be very good while he's here. Let's just build for the future, tread water this year if we can, but we're going to be very, very good going forward. And these young guys that we're playing are going to be part of that future. There's someone they can move. He's replaceable. He's being paid a lot of money. And I argued on our show even, he might have to be put in the deal to get Ben Simmons somewhere. You'll get a younger player back, maybe someone not as good, but someone that can grow into what Tobias does for them. It's not like Tobias is an all-star right now. He's a good player. They should take a long-term approach, but that's your point about private equity. That is not their strength.
The whole, like, the people are here for the long haul, we believe in the people thing. That's not the lever they pull, right? All right. And there's a good point in the athletic story at the end. And I can't believe that it wasn't obvious to you before. Maybe you all thought of it. I'm the last guy here, but those holdouts, Anthony Davis, James Harden, Jimmy Butler in Minnesota, were holding out from terrible teams.
Yeah. We talked about it.
Which lets management just chill, right? Like, it's actually kind of tanking, right? Right. But this team needs to win. It feels like Daryl doesn't have that many cards.
So, Henry, I'm so much older than you, but you clearly aren't 20 anymore. We've had this conversation, my man. We have talked about this is so rare to want to leave an elite team. It's fair to say the Sixers, at least they were an elite team. They didn't get worse, right? It's such to me, it's such an interesting story that someone's really going to develop down the road of what in the world has happened. This is the process work. They delivered a number 1 pick and a number 3 pick. One's an all-star. One was what did Embiid finish MVP? I know you don't like pop quizzes, but he was,
I don't know.
Top 3?
Sure.
He was right there. It worked. And now look what's happened. This is unfortunate because it really was a great situation they were in. And I do think every player has to take accountability. I
make a different point though. Like, yeah, you're right. It's something fucked up happened in Philadelphia for sure. But the point is that, like, they got bad ROI for Jimmy Butler, bad ROI for James Harden, and they had all the time in the world. Each passing day arguably made their position stronger, right? Yeah. And they got like terrible return in all 3 cases. Well, I don't know. The Anthony Davis return pretty good, but but it's just a very different analysis now. Where, like, it will cost Daryl half a season of an MVP candidate's prime when he's super injury prone guy, right? Like, I really don't think if you're Kevin Pritchard or whoever Daryl's working the phones for now, I don't think there's anything Daryl can say to make Kevin think anything other than, I think we're in a good position, right? Like, Kevin just doesn't have to sweeten the pot that much. Like, it feels to me.
No, I hear you, Henry. So the only leverage that exists is if more than one team wants Ben Simmons, right? And so whether they win or lose, we can argue separately. Ben Simmons has been what he's been. To think that he's going to continue to get worse, because he has gotten just a little bit trending downward. We've had a pandemic. He's not close to his prime. He's nowhere close to his ceiling, ideally, like what he could get to on paper. And so if it turns out the Pacers want him and the Wizards suddenly value him, and the Spurs were like, you know what, this guy could really help us. And you could go on from there. Well, now if you sit and wait, you've lost the chance maybe to get the all-star that you wouldn't otherwise get. Right. And you and I think both are Ben Simmons fans. We recognize his faults, but we also recognize that just looking at, I love how you said this months ago, Henry, you said it was just a series. And even if it's been a couple series, it's just a couple series. But James Harden has a lot of that. And we aren't trashing him. I realize they're different worlds as players, but I think a team is going to recognize this guy is ascending still and should be ascending still. And quite frankly, the Sixers really haven't all been hunky-dory. The previous regime, think of the chaos that has been there with Brett Brown and Jerry Colangelo and the whole white thing in Twitter, and it's been weird, right? It's just been a weird, and then the pandemic hit. So it's silly for me to think that with some hugs and whatever, there's a lot of work that has to be done. Ben Simmons can be so much better. And if Kevin Pritchard wants to just play coy, he may lose a chance to get the best player he's going to get in the next 5 years.
Okay, so let's, you've written about this, we talked about it, but talk us through, like, how do we fix Ben Simmons' path? How do we get in that little downward trend to back up? Like, what would you do? This is your area of expertise. Let's go.
Yeah, so to me, it starts with him being accountable for what he's done poorly, what he's good at now, and what he wants. That's ultimately the big question of all. What do you want? The article we wrote that you published about kind of healing Ben Simmons, and the idea was, well, let's make you the MVP. What does that look like? How can you be the MVP of this league? So we reverse engineered it in a sense. You got to average 24 plus points per game at minimum, and average, close to a triple double. These are all things he's capable of doing. He doesn't do it because he doesn't shoot very much, but he can shoot a lot more for sure. And so how do you get your shots? Where do you get your shots? I would do a deep dive into, Ben, you're not finishing at the rim great because you're so worried about getting fouled. I think you're avoiding contact sometimes, and it's causing him. He doesn't finish nearly as well as Giannis. Well, no one does, but he can finish better. So you got to get him unafraid to be fouled. You got to tell him every time you get fouled and you miss your free throws, we got a team closer to the bonus. Our other players shoot better free throws than you and now get rewarded when they get fouled. We don't care if you miss. Keep missing. It's putting them in danger of getting in foul trouble themselves. Let's keep working on your free throws. Let's get you more confident from three. But if you never shoot a three, your mid-range game is good. You got a floater game. He does this little thing where he gets to like 7-8 feet from the left block area and just shoots a little jumper off the board, and no guard can guard that. It's an easy shot. It's an easy bucket. He should be better at floaters. He's ambidextrous around the rim. To play downhill more, run an offense that does that more. Do it. We wrote about this months ago. Do what the Bucks did with Giannis. Create an environment where he can just attack more. Embiid isn't the great partner for that because he draws so much paint and attention to the paint. So have a center that can shoot threes and have a backup center that can shoot threes and play the lineup where the only non-shooter on the floor is Ben Simmons. I'm not saying that the Sixers should have done that at all. They have Joel Embiid. The next team guaranteed won't have Joel Embiid unless it's Nikola Jokic or a few other like Karl Anthony Towns who actually can shoot. They're all going to be able to play differently than what Philly played. And to me, though, the big thing is fearlessness. And Louisa wrote about this. Unafraid to miss shots, unafraid to miss free throws, hug him up every time he gets, keep track of how many fouls he draws. Henry, when players are younger and for younger teams, you chart things like deflections and charges taken, and you reward them for those kinds of things. They don't show up in the box score. I would definitely keep track of fouls taken, which is a stat you can look up. It's in there.
Sure.
In Europe, they track it. Like it's in the original box score. It isn't that way in the NBA, I don't believe. You got to go to
it's on NBA.com. You can look up on NBA.com.
Yeah, you got to go to the more advanced box score. It's not an ESPN box, but every foul's taken. Give a piece of gum every time he gets more than 9 fouls taken a game or whatever. Reward that. Reward shots attempted in the paint, shots attempted in the mid-range, the second box we call it. Get him, but you got to get him to buy into wanting that. If he's happy just to be a regular quarterback, we'll just make sure he's understanding he's going to make a lot less money in his next contract because he's being paid for more than just being a game manager.
I like this from your story a couple weeks ago. If Ben isn't careful, he might set an all-time record for free throws missed per playoff game. To get to the top of that list, you'd have to climb past the current leaders: Wilt Chamberlain, Shaquille O'Neal, Dwight Howard, and Giannis. They have 8 MVPs and 8 championships between them. Nobody likes missing free throws, but it comes with a whole lot of success.
Yeah, it's just we'd like you to make a free throw, but we're okay. It's the most important thing, and I've quoted this many times before. When I got hired in summer of 1987, the first book I bought, I didn't buy it. I think my coach gave it to me, my head coach, Dean Smith's Multiple Penetrating Attacks for Winning Basketball. I got it right in my library behind me right here. And page 1 in this book written in the 60s, I want to say, maybe it was the 70s. It was an old book. Page 1, Dean Smith talks about our number 1 goal at North Carolina is to get fouled on offense. That's what we play for, to get fouled. it took data analytics many years to prove it mathematically. What many coaches, Dean Smith is one of the best ever. And so Ben, just keep getting fouled, my man. Keep getting fouled. It's good for us. But there's a lot of psychology there. There's a lot of therapy that needs to go on. But we know it can make a difference. It has. LeBron James was the sunken player against the Mavericks when they lost that series that you and I thought for sure they'd win. Certainly I did. He's not that same guy anymore. We've never seen that LeBron James in any other postseason, even when the Spurs didn't guard him. They just basically didn't guard anyone. They just packed it in. LeBron was like offended and just has unleashed all hell on every defense he's seen. That is not what we saw against the Mavs, which was his second postseason finals, because he was in the finals as a Cavalier. He got swept by the Spurs. You can change. It's just going to take some work. Just like Jokic can change his body, Ben can change his mindset.
Trot, if you'd like to join us, we'd love to have you. Okay, Ben Simmons actually, it gets to the heart of what's the difference between how you win basketball games and how you make basketball highlights, right? Like he's like an offer for making highlights, but he's actually very strong at all the things that aren't obvious, right? All the things that are hard to see with your eyes. And actually, so the other day, I know I'm big on the occasionally I listen to a player on a podcast and I just talk about it for half a month. But so Tom Haberstroh had Jamal, what's his last name? Crawford, and they talked about after practice. He played with like a who's who of superstars through his career, and he basically had a ritual of playing a one-on-one with each of his superstar teammates at every stop. And they had different permutations of, with Chris Paul, he'd do it this way, etc. But one of the things that's absolutely standard, I have now confirmed with David Thorpe, is they would play with no rebounds. So, and two dribbles usually, for different spots, different ways you do it. But think about it. This is highlight basketball, right? And this, I really think, like, over my career, like, players just keep saying, like, you don't understand how good Carmelo Anthony is, as like the Knicks are losing and losing. Or they say, you understand how good Kobe is, right, et cetera. Like, I think there's a certain skill set that wins that game, which is the game they're all working on. The best players on all their teams are doing this after practice and kicking ass. And the not as good players don't win this. Ben Simmons wouldn't win this probably, right? But all these, Matisse Thybulle would never win this, right? Like, it's almost, he can't even be in the conversation. But I think there is like, there's a little difference between what the advanced stats show wins and what everybody fucking loves. And they're just, Ben Simmons is the perfect guy because, like, he doesn't do anything everybody loves, but he does shit that wins. And we just don't know how to value that guy.
I want to clarify it to go further, and then I'm going to compare it to one of Gerard's favorite players. Ben Simmons does, on occasion, look like he would be Giannis. Like, yeah, I watched that entire Jazz game when he scored 42. Right. First of all, I watched it live, but I went back and watched it before I wrote this recent article. And dude, he was like, when Gerard talks about, I just want the best player in the game for that pickup game. In that game, except for Ben Simmons can't make jumpers the way Kevin Durant, inside 15 feet, the best. He looked like Giannis. He wasn't just unguardable. He was relentless about it. He wasn't ambivalent to the fact that nobody can guard me, which is how Kevin Durant and these guys, James Harden, they want to pound you all the time with their scoring. Ben doesn't. We need to change that. But this is where a guy like Kevin Durant is so unique. And Gerard gets to watch him up close so often. He knows he can score every time. I love this so much about Kevin Durant, by the way, Gerard. He knows nobody can guard him ever. And yet he understands to win at the highest level, I can't just shoot it every time. And he does it, I think, with a grace. There are players like Jordan Clarkson has some 8 assist games because he can't get a good shot off and he knows I probably should pass it. He doesn't do it joyfully. Durant lets you do your thing and never makes you feel bad. Have you ever seen him make someone feel bad for taking a relatively decent shot when throwing it to Kevin Durant's always the better play? Because to play Jazz, you need more than one person, right?
You do.
What do you think, Gerard?
I think those are all fair points. And I want to go back to something Henry said about players and that one-on-one thing, right? So it's basically king of the court, right? Like that's the game you're playing at the end of every practice. And whatever the rules are, 2 dribbles, blah, blah, whatever. And it's because players, particularly NBA players, the skill they value among all else is buckets. That is what they value more than It's not that they don't value defense or they don't value rebound or they don't these other things. They just value buckets more than anything else. That is the most important thing. So when they're playing GM, which is often what superstars get to do, they think buckets. That's the first thing they think of. They don't think, shit, we need somebody who can grab. Nope, buckets. That's just how their brains work because we got to score, right? Like that's the idea. So I get like that point. And to Henry's point, it's like that's why they're not always perfect to ask these questions because it's like you probably need a little bit of Matisse Thybulle in here, but it's harder to quantify Matisse's value, right? Because to Henry, that's not a highlight on SportsCenter. But coming back down from 8 points in 9 seconds, that is a highlight on SportsCenter.
Well, and to further the point, though, Henry, to further your point and Gerard's too, I went to a training camp in Washington once, John Wall's rookie year, and I spent a lot of time with Flip Saunders, and Flip really talked to his team about, you're going to love this, guys, about the way KG set screens because he had him in Minnesota. And it fits
illegal most of the time, but whatever, it's cool. It's fine.
His big teaching point, though, was the width of his legs. Everyone keeps thinking, get big. Kevin Garnett was skinny. Right. But he's right. It's all about getting wide lower body because that means the defender's got to run around it more. But when Henry just was saying that about the one-on-one game, whatever, that's what wins games too. And if you remember how people were really critical of KG for a long time, meanwhile, think about it. If KG wasn't stuck on that fucking terrible franchise, how many more titles might he have won? Because he absolutely didn't care about anything but winning. He didn't have to be the man taking the shot. He wanted us to take the shot and win it. I'll guard everybody, and I'll set the great screen for you. Draymond Green does that now. If Draymond Green was a quieter player, we might appreciate him less. Metrics wouldn't. Henry was the guy to always point out when the Warriors were rolling, it was Draymond's plus minus, right, Henry? That was so.
He set the all-time record. He set the all-time record. Yeah.
Oh wow! Right.
Yeah.
So the Ben Simmons comparison is such a good point. He does a lot of other things, and he's nowhere near his potential. And remember this too. Last thing I'll say, I feel like he's also playing with a black cloud sometimes. It's not just. I think he's down. I think that's why I wrote about giving him a hug. I think he is conflicted with. Well, I was the first player in the draft, first pick in the draft. I was this amazing player. Everyone knew I was the number one high school player, number one coming out of college. Why isn't everyone loving me? Why am I not the man? Why am I not the best player on my team? That's why I say he needs help. He needs psychological help to understand. It's not medicine, counseling, guidance. Like, hey, you can be who you are and be like Kevin Garnett. I win a ton of games. And Kevin Garnett was never the best player on the championship team. It was probably Paul Pierce, and maybe it was Ray Allen. You could argue Rondo was pretty good, but Garnett was the guy. I think Ben Simmons needs a load of that.
So it's this thing, right, between best and most important, right? Like, and that's the thing. Like, you need both to win. You need the best player, but you also need who is the most important guy, right? Like, obviously, like early Warriors pre-KD, you need Draymond, right? Like, Steph doesn't do all those crazy things with no Draymond, right? Like, that's the thing. It's you, but that's part of the thing with. We talked about this on Friday, Coach, how we teach the game to fans and how we explain it. That doesn't work for SportsCenter and TV and short clips. Like those things don't work for that. So the average fan doesn't know how good all those complimentary guys are. They know, hey, this guy doesn't get buckets, so he sucks, right? Like that's how they watch basketball. He doesn't get buckets, he sucks. And it's like, yeah, but there's a little bit more nuance in that.
Well, and that's how the business works too, right? Like that's how highlights work. That's how, like making the game popular on this device globally will depend exactly on that thing, right? Like we're not going to have 5 million views on little clips of Ben racing over to help on the weak side, right? Like it's just not going to happen. So to me, it's almost unfortunate that the game, just like maybe, every business has to have like an accounting department that makes sure all the spreadsheets are up to date. Like if you could somehow not have to have that, like, yay, I guess, right? Like it's just something it's required, right? It's necessary. But so to me, this is just like, it's just an inefficiency, right? Like, it's just like in getting the highlights to the fans, we end up putting 4 other people on the court. And if they're bad at this thing and that thing, then guess what? You don't make the playoffs, right? It's just that thing. So I think it's not that it isn't crazy valuable. It's just that these post-practice one-on-one skill things are just like 5x overvalued. Like it is the most important thing in the game, and we evaluate it like it's the only thing in the game.
Yes.
Right. And like, no, it's just the most important thing in the game. But if you end up with fucking Matisse Thybulle who can't even dribble, like, you need him. Like, you're gonna need him. And like, this is where Teddy Simmons is the one where I'm like, I wish I could somehow. I don't know exactly what the game would be, but I would like to gamble on the future wins of Ben Simmons' team, and like a gamble against the 76ers, right? Because like, I just know that the way this transaction is going to go will undervalue the things he does, because nobody values those things because they're not sexy on SportsCenter.
Oh, look, we talked about this, coach. Like, they start out 6-11 or something weird. It's going to be, and it ain't going to be because they're not scoring points. It's going to be because all those little things are not happening now because he is so unique. And to your point, Henry, about this is what we do. This is how the game is sold. I mean, it's everywhere. Think back to those Uncle Drew commercials for Pepsi and Kyrie with Bill Russell. What's Bill Russell saying? One of these kids need to learn is this game has always been about buckets, and it's funny and we all laugh and it's great. And it's like, but when that gets constantly pushed in your head, there's buckets about buckets. It
was Bill Russell who could not get buckets.
Well, the best ever players did it all.
Yes.
That's why I don't place Bill Russell with Kareem. Kareem did everything else you're describing, and
he got buckets.
Best scorer ever, right? Jordan, LeBron, these guys. This is the Durant. This is what separates them. Harden, all these guys. But that should not discount the value of that next rung down, the next rung down. This is how it works. I will proffer one other idea, which is if the Sixers don't start off well, and I'm going to watch the game tonight, mostly because Scotty Barnes is playing. Let's be fair. That's what I'm excited about most, is watching Scotty Barnes. I just want to be honest.
Speaking of players who make good things happen without being obvious, yeah.
Right. He's just like Ben Simmons that way, right? He's not a great bucket getter yet.
Yeah.
So if things don't start out good, I have a sneaking suspicion, guys, that we're going to find more tumult in Philadelphia that was masked last year because they were the top seed. Winning kind of motivates players to keep your mouth shut. As I always say, players, you can't go complain to anyone when you're winning, even though you're not the reason why they're winning. You want to do more. You're not going to get coach to play you 5 more minutes of rotation when they're already winning, when you're playing less than 5 minutes extra per rotation. When you start losing, that's when Seth Curry starts wondering, well, I should be the real lead guard. And Tabule is saying this, and maybe who knows? Tobias won't say anything. He's the pro's pro. But that's when you start getting some other things bubbling up, which is the point I made to Henry earlier. That's when things could get ugly, is when they start losing. If they can't all keep it together, we'll find out where their leadership is. Is Joel, can he be that guy? We've never seen that, not publicly, where he can be that voice of that's where LeBron has done great work. Sometimes he's the reason why there's bubbling issues to begin with, but he's also very good. And did you watch the game yesterday? I'm sure Gerard did. I liked LeBron. I thought he handled himself great on the bench. You don't go crazy for stuff, but I never thought for 1 second he wasn't all in. Same as Westbrook. They were fired up to be on that sideline for a meaningless game in first couple of days of October. We'll see if the Sixers have someone like that. To me, Danny Green's not that guy. Tobias isn't that guy. And Embiid, it's got to be Embiid. I just don't trust that he will be.
Well, Henry, this goes to your point. If that happens, what David just mentions, this is what gets private equity man Josh Harris to get itchy trigger fingers and be like, no, none of this. Fix it. And Daryl's got to take that L and just take back whatever they get.
Yeah, I don't know. I imagine Daryl's had these conversations. I know that the reports were he got like a huge long deal when he signed up in Philadelphia. Daryl did. I think it was 5 years. But I don't know what those conversations are like behind the scenes. I'm sure they've prepared for this, but he has to take his temperature. Daryl has to take Josh's temperature from the beginning. Like, are we doing this the right way? Or are we doing this the fast way? And Josh says whatever he says, right? But Josh can change his mind at any time. I'll tell you what else. I think it matters a little bit that Josh has resigned from Apollo Global so that he could spend more time with the Sixers. That's the reason.
Not good.
So now, like, if that project goes, like, heaven forbid, so Simmons is definitely out. If Embiid's injured, and now like Josh is walking to the arena, and everyone's just like, "Fucking save us from this hell!"
Disaster.
Like, they're gonna trade everybody. You know what I mean? Like,
that's some booing fans right there. So just to connect connect the Pandora Papers dot. Gerard, and I know you and I love what Henry's doing with his whole series on. We call it the Epstein series, but there's so much more.
Follow the money.
His whole point is who's running this league that we're covering? Where's the money coming from? Both the face of it and then behind the scenes. These Pandora Papers, this investigation. I said to Henry, I'm one of 12 people apparently that have said to Henry, like, there's going to be some cross section here. There's going to be some sharing of DNA between that discussion and what Henry's looking at. And I can't wait to see Henry on Rachel Maddow's show talking about it.
and it can't not affect the on-court product, right? Like it has to. It's going at some point. It's going to affect the on-court product.
There's so much. We have 5 minutes left. Can I tell you this little story about Sam Waxel? Do you guys remember this?
Of course.
So that's funny. John says, of course. John knows everything. Nobody knows who Sam Waxel is.
I don't think I do.
Listen, the shady billionaires that I know adjacently or whatever. It's a whole other.
Gerard. I remember you telling me a few weeks ago you're doing the shady billionaires baseball card product. Trading cards.
Go on, Henry. Very promising. Fungible tokens. Those are fungible tokens. So Sam Waxel has so many creepy involvements. He started the company that Martha Stewart went to prison for insider trading it. Right. But he had his mentor was Carl Icahn, who is deeply connected with all of these Drexel Burnham and Apollo Global guys. And they had another company called Scientia Holdings, which had a real CEO in New York, although Scientia was technically based offshore. The guy who ran Scientia resigned, saying that it was fraud and crime, what was going on there. And in the end, of course, also went to prison. But Scientia had all these little offshore. This is where it comes to the Pandora Papers. This was early. They were early to all of these little offshore things with names like, TD Inc., whatever. And one of them or two of them actually, were created by unnamed Apollo partners investing it with Jeffrey Epstein. And at that time, Apollo founders, the word Apollo founders is a little confusing because it was one bunch that they started it, and then later they kicked some of the guys out and brought in Josh and Mark Rowan, and now they're considered the founders, even though they weren't actually founders when it was founded, which is what you have to be a real fucking founder. Anyway, but if the timing is right, that Josh and Mark Rowan were there at the time that these Epstein offshore entities were created with Sam Waxel and Scientia Holdings. And so we don't know. Totally possible that Josh Harris, some Apollo founders, according to the findings of the Decker report, did invest with Epstein in these things, right? This is a little drop in the bucket of how money just moves. We had Albert Bullock on the show. This is 10% of the money on Earth is just moving, and this little thing up in Bermuda, it's a little hard to track. It's a little confusing.
All these fun countries that have, shall we say, loose banking regulations and things where you can just deposit money and they don't really ask for a whole lot of questions. That's
And you would need politicians who wanted to clean it up. If you were going to clean it up, what would be the qualities of that politician? They'd have to not take money from very rich people. Oh, fuck, we're out of them.
No one does that.
Did you guys catch in the last minute and a half? Did you guys catch Jon Stewart's first show?
No.
It was an hour devoted on just how horrible this country treats their veterans.
Oh.
And there's specific things that I don't want to spoil it. You have to watch it. But as I'm watching it, and with my wife and I, I'm thinking of Henry about what you've been writing about. We protect these billionaires so much. And yet we claim to be patriots and love our soldiers and all of that.
We don't give a shit about veterans.
No, meanwhile they're doing in SNL, they're doing space races. Bezos and Musk, they're doing races in space. It was hysterical. It wasn't hysterical. It was funny, but it was also tragic that you juxtapose those two stories. Where our veterans are so screwed when they serve, and yet our billionaires who are paying less tax rates than we are racing in space.
It's a trick.
Walk around the VA hospital or ask a veteran what it's like when they got to get stuff done, and you'll know how much this country actually cares about the flag and the military and the veterans. These people don't give a shit about them at all.
You ever been to a VFW?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've seen
Stories,
things.
the stories you hear at those places.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen things. All right, game tonight. I'm watching Scotty Barnes. What are you guys watching?
This is Scotty Moore.
I'm
Does he have teammates or no? Or he's not doing that?
Doesn't matter.
just gonna flip around and see whoever until I
There's
get
a lot of games, right?
Yeah, a lot of games.
Yeah.
All right.
Damn.
Catch up on
thank-
Friday.
Judy's getting noisy in the chat. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, John. Thank you, David. Thank you,
Hey.
Judy.